Dong, 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 dong.
Yeah.
I forget sometimes it is Bad Company that does that song. Um,
Seriously?
yeah, Bad Company does Young Blood.
Damn, how did I miss that?
Well, that is oh hell, I can't believe I just forgot his name. He was
Paul Rogers.
Paul Rogers singing the song, and that is Paul Rogers was a member of Free,
Mm-hmm.
and he's also sung with Queen, which that must be an unusual combination, um, because he's not a high tenor kind of voice. He's very husky in his voice. So, but yeah, he sang that song with
Yeah.
uh, with Bad Company. All right, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. See, this is my other. I like football, but the other thing I like talking about is music. So, I can't play, but I can sure read a lot of music stories, not music. So, anyway,
Yeah. I can play.
you can play, and you can sing. I can't even sing. Um,
Well, that's debatable. I
well,
have people in my life that have been around for a while that have been really skeptical on that point, but I try.
well, my problem is I want to sound like Steve Perry, Peter Cetera, Dennis DeYoung, and I do not have anywhere close to their voices. But
Yeah, if
so
I sounded like them, just the production value of this show would be so much higher.
oh, absolutely. So when I try and sound like them, I sound like somebody who had a horrible accident on a bicycle. All right, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host Alan Orick with my partner here, Sean Williams. How you doing tonight, Sean?
What's up? What's up, man? Draft week,
Absolutely.
um, and everybody's still in quarantine, and I'm
For at least another week.
yeah. I had heard rumors that Edwards extended it beyond the 30th. I don't know that to be a fact or not.
Not yet. Not yet.
Uh, but
Her Honor, Mayor Cantrell wants to push it to the 16th, but of May. But I don't know. I think we have to wait and see what Edward says probably next week.
someone needs to punch him in the throat.
Um,
I'm just ready for life to
oh,
start getting back to normal.
you and me both.
Um, there's no professional sports. I'm
No.
I'm sitting here watching movies. Uh, Actually, what's playing right now in the background is The Natural with Robert Redford.
Well, that's a great movie.
Oh, it is, and there's a documentary also on the disc of kind of an interpretation of the movie through the eyes of Cal Ripken,
Okay.
and it was so fantastically put together. I have nothing but respect for that guy.
Well, that's one of the best baseball movies outside of Pride of the Yankees and the classics. Field of Dreams. The problem with Field of Dreams is Kevin Costner's boring as all hell. Uh, I mean, I hate to say it like that, but Kevin Costner plays the same character in every movie.
Just
You know,
about, yeah. My
uh,
favorite Kevin Costner movie
huh.
was The Postman.
Really?
Yes, I loved that movie, and Will Patton played the anti-hero in it
Hmm.
so well, and yeah, I loved everything about it.
See, the movie. If I had to pick a Kevin Costner movie, I really liked it. Not the big ones like the Untouchables. Clearly, I like the Untouchables a lot, but Sean Connery's in that one. But if I had to pick one I really like, that's probably not on most people's watch list. It's No Way Out. That's a good film. Sean Young, right before she went completely nuts, is in this movie, and it's a interesting movie to watch. Um, it's kind of a mystery. She ends up dead, and he had a one night stand with her, and she took a picture of. No, I'm sorry, they had a little relationship, not just a one night stand, but it was crazy sex. So because she was crazy. And she took a picture of him, and it's an old style camera where people under the age of 30 probably can't even imagine this. But you take the negative. I mean, the picture comes out, and you peel that sticker back to
Yeah.
make the picture come clean.
Polaroid
Yeah,
Instamatic.
it's like a Polaroid Instamatic, but it's a strip, and you peel the sticker off, and that's how you get the picture. Well, you know, she throws it under the bed or whatever, and well, when they find her dead body the next day, um, that is part of the evidence, and he has to investigate the crime, and he knows that picture is, and he doesn't want it to indict him because he obviously didn't kill her, and who did kill her was somebody else that was seeing her, and he's trying to solve that mystery at the same time, slow down the evidence creating that's going to indict himself. So it's a good story. It's a good story to watch. I don't want to ruin the whole thing, but
Well, I sit here and I never saw The Natural until very, very recently.
okay.
And it was weird, man. It I never understood why the woman shot him at the beginning.
Oh, Roy Hobbs, yeah, yeah.
I never understood how that worked into the story, but okay, whatever. But I've watched so many sports movies this week. Rudy, obviously, The Replacements.
You've seen Brian's song, right?
Oh, I've seen both versions actually.
Well, I'm talking about the good one with James Caan and Billy D.
Yeah,
Williams.
yeah.
Yeah, I saw that
Uh,
in the '70s.
let's see what else. Invincible with
Yeah, I've
Mark
seen that.
Wahlberg. I
I've
thought
seen
that
that.
was a very well done movie.
It is. I
Uh,
think I always thought they could do one with about the Beer Man. They've always talked about doing it, but I've never seen it actually made.
well, if he played for the Dallas Cowboys earlier,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I
yeah.
think they worry about
Well,
basically
let me ask you something.
huh,
How in the hell do you trade somebody that's retired?
give the rights to them. It's just like Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck's retired, but the Colts have the rights to him. So unless you relinquish those rights, you still have the ability to trade somebody who's retired.
That's nuts, man.
I know. Usually, what happens though, a player when they retire, turn their papers in, and the league accepts it, and then usually the team lets the rights go. But I think they thought Gronkowski was going to come back. So
Yeah, I've had that. I've drawn that conclusion a
yeah,
couple of times already, and I'll tell you this much: in my educated opinion, had the WWE not had to scale back their operations drastically due to this coronavirus thing,
hmm
Gronk would be under their employ at this very
oh
point in
yeah.
time.
Well, that's probably what it is. But listen, they the Bucks are trying to recreate the Patriots, and Gronk is his back is shot. So I mean, I'm the only thing I'm looking forward to. I want to get OJ Howard, and I'm willing to give up a fourth or fifth round pick for him because what you going to do with him now? You got Gronk and you got Brait, and you don't like OJ Howard. You're trying to trade him beforehand. So give us OJ Howard so we can teach you how to train a tight end.
Well, there too. How's that going to affect your?
Well, it really doesn't. It's what you can do is you just use him as tight end number two. Just like you did when you had Graham and um, Ben Watson. I mean, you had those two on the field at the same time. What it does is it kind of takes Hill out of the equation, really, as a pass receiver, and he just becomes essentially just a blocker, which is what I want. I want I'd like to have Hill just out of the passing game, because they were using Taysom Hill a lot last year as a tight end. You can use Hill in that regard. You can use OJ Howard in that regard, but use Cook primarily as a receiver. So,
Well, since you brought his name up, let me ask you:
mhm.
do you have any take on the whole Taysom Hill story going on?
I didn't expect anybody to sign him to an offer sheet. They're not willing to give up a first round pick.
Well, he hasn't signed his tender.
No, but that's not a big deal, honestly, because his tenure would be a 1 year deal at 4.5 million, and I think that's what it is, 4.5 million, a 1 year deal, and then next year he's an unrestricted free agent. So the smart thing is to sign him to a long term deal, whether it's 2 or 3 years, and you could lower his cap figure for 2020 by giving him, say, a lot of cash in the form of a signing bonus. Like, easy for me to say, in the form of a signing bonus, and then you lower his cap figure from 4.5 million to maybe 2 million, and you just prorate the bonus across the length of the contract, make it a 4 year deal, something like that. I
Yeah.
mean, that's essentially what you do with that. So it's not a bad thing he didn't sign his tender. He's not going anywhere. It's past the time, so he's stuck with us. So I'm not worried about that.
No, I don't really see any foreseeable eventuality that's going to mean that Taysom Hill is no longer the same.
Yeah.
I think that's really high on the priority list
The
for this
and you
organization
put
right now.
you slap a first round tender on him because you really are trying to discourage a team from going after him as a restricted free agent, because it's like, you're really going to have to you're going to have to really make a commitment to get this guy if you want him. And if you do that, we'll take your first round pick. Thank you very much. Well, first round picks are very valuable. So that's all that was. It wasn't that you can't look at it from the standpoint of, oh, they put a first round tender on him, so that must mean that they view him as a franchise quarterback. No, they just
No,
want,
I never believed that.
yeah, they just want to discourage other teams from going to get him. Um, but one last thing before we get into the draft and everything, but talk about movies earlier. I watched Heaven Can Wait on Stars Network. What was it? 2 weeks ago now. Have you ever
Oh,
seen that
wow.
movie?
I've
That's what
seen bits and pieces of
Warren Beatty. He's trying out to
Los
be the
Angeles
backup.
Rams
Yeah, trying to
quarterback.
be a backup quarterback for the Los Angeles Rams. And what's funny about that movie, it was filmed in 77, 78, and it came out this 1978 predicting the Saints and the Rams. I mean, the Saints, the Steelers and the Rams in the Super Bowl. Well, of course, in 1979, the Steelers and the Rams do go to the Super Bowl, led by a backup quarterback, which I've always that always made me laugh every time I saw that, because
Good old
it's
Vince Ferragamo.
yeah, 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 because Pat Hayden got hurt,
Yeah.
so Vince Ferragamo got it, and Vince Ferragamo got so big for his britches, he thought the Rams should pay him more money than he was worth. And he obviously had not paid attention to the entire 70s decade of the Los Angeles Rams and how they view quarterbacks. Um, they went through quarterbacks like Mike Ditka did. I mean, you had Shaq Harris, James Harris, you had Pat Hayden, you had um, Joe Namath, you had Ron Jaworski, you had Roman Gabriel to start the decade. I mean, they went through a different quarterback every year, it seemed, trying to find the right guy that's going to lead them all the way. Oh, and the other thing about Heaven Can Wait, in the movie, Warren Beatty's character buys the Los Angeles Rams from the owner, and the owner is supposed to look a lot like Carol Rosenblum. Well, in 1979, Rosenblum drowns and his wife takes over, so the ownership did change, and that was kind of creepy too, because you're like, okay, you predicted the Rams going to the Super Bowl and you predicted the ownership change. So
Yeah.
Deacon Jones plays in the movie too. I was trying to, and there's a couple other old Rams that are in the game, in the film. Um, Dick Butkus is not in this film. Dick Butkus is like in every football film of the '70s, but Dick Butkus does not appear in this film. So it's a fun movie if you've never seen it. It's dated. I get it, but it still is fun to watch. I mean, it really is.
What was the movie that they filmed where the blimp crashes in the Super Bowl?
Black Sunday with
Yeah, Black Sunday.
Robert Shaw. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was they used actual footage from Super Bowl 10,
yep.
1976, in that one.
The
It's the
Wilson
Orange Bowl.
Cowboys.
Yep, it's the Orange Bowl. Yeah, Black Sunday. Most football movies suck. I'm not gonna be honest. I'm not gonna lie. Basketball, well, not basketball is okay, but baseball usually does good movies. Football movies are generally terrible because
Well, I have one that's really good. It's called The Express. It's about
yes, yes.
it's about
Although the Express kind of downplays a lot Paul Brown's involvement in Davis coming to the Browns and the fight between he and Modell about playing Ernie Davis, even though he has leukemia. Because part of the reason why Art Modell fired Paul Brown was because Paul Brown drafted Ernie Davis and traded away to the Washington Redskins, Bobby Mitchell. And Bobby Mitchell and Jim Brown were like Kamara and Ingram, a little bit on steroids, but Kamara and Ingram, just because how good Jim Brown was. But they were a tandem.
yeah.
And Paul Brown had trouble dealing with Jim Brown because of the kind of player and person he was. So Jim Brown saw Ernie Davis a bit because Ernie Davis is just like Jim Brown. Kind of saw him as, although they were going to coexist and they liked each other, and he was kind of excited about playing, but also saw him as that's my replacement he just got for this team, so he can ship me out just like he shipped out um, Bobby Mitchell. And that's Mordell's like, I bought this team because I wanted Jim Brown and Bobby Mitchell, and you're trading them away. So that part isn't talked about a whole lot in the film.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm in a group talk with some Browns fans talking about '60s NFL, and they really talk a lot about that in that group. Why Paul Brown got fired and all the rest. But oh yeah, and I remember the Titans was good. My middle
Yes.
girl, my middle daughter, she loves that film. She used to have quotes from Remember the Titans on the walls of her bedroom.
Yes.
Um,
That's a
Very
fantastic movie.
inspirational movie. But anyway, we could talk about we should have a show one time talk about sports movies and the best ones, comedies. Do not if you need to see it just for curiosity's sake, watch it. But for the most part, number one, featuring Charlton Heston, but he's supposed to be an over the hill quarterback with the New Orleans Saints. It was made in 1968, so it features a lot of footage from the '68 season of and Charlton Heston even wears number 17, just like Billy Kilmer. And they use NFL Films footage of actual Saints games, mixed spliced in with Heston and some stand-ins playing football. It is so obvious the difference between Heston and Kilmer. It's hilarious to watch. It really is. I mean,
Well,
you go,
the other day I watched the original Planet of the Apes.
oh, that's a great movie.
It
That's a
is,
great
and
movie.
there too special features of that was a documentary on the franchise of Planet of the Apes. It was narrated by Roddy McDowell, and they went through all five movies, the two TV series, and the whole thing. And
Yep.
it was like 2 hours, 3 hours
Get your
long.
damn hands off of me, you filthy ape.
That's right.
No, it's dirty hands off me, you damn filthy ape. That's what it is, yeah. I have watched, yeah, back in the day, I've watched all the old Planet of the Apes films, Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I never really got into the new series of reboots, but the original ones.
I did. I've got, I think, two of them, and I think that the work that Andy Serkis does on those films is just absolutely brilliant.
Um, which movie is it with Mike Ditka and Farrell?
Oh,
Where you
Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell tell him to get the juice box?
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but God, he's their soccer coach.
Yeah,
Oh man, it'll
but
come to me.
yeah. But anyway, I I watched what you call it number one when it came on um, AMC years and years ago, and I even DVR'd it. And I really because I really wanted to sit and say, okay, it's a Saints film. I'm gonna watch this. It can't be that bad. Oh, it's bad. His story really makes no sense. The only thing I kept finding interesting was seeing the old shots of New Orleans back in the 60s. That was probably the only thing that was worth watching. Um,
That movie was kicking and screaming, by the way.
Kicking and screaming. That's it. That's it. Um, yeah, North Dallas 40. My brother's bringing up the old movie, Peter Gent's book. Yeah, Matt Davis and Nick Nolte, North Dallas 40. Saw that one
Yeah, the
too.
Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, yeah.
Matt Davis played Don Meredith.
Essentially, yeah. Don Meredith and Nick Nolte was supposed to be Peter Gent. Um, and uh, yeah, Mac Davis gets replaced basically by who's going to be Craig Morton. But yeah, the replacements, my favorite part of the replacements is the strippers as cheerleaders. And the old man grabbing the binoculars, you realize that's what I'm talking about. That was a great scene. Um,
I love Shane Falco. I mean,
and the original, I saw both of them with the original semi tough. No, is that what it? No,
yeah,
uh, the one where they go to prison. He's the prison. Burt Reynolds is in it. It's the
the longest yard.
Longest Yard. Thank you, thank you. Semi tough was another movie he did, but The Longest Yard. But anyway, okay, so let's talk about the draft. Now that we're a half hour in, let's talk about the draft. Okay, so Thursday, I released a mock yesterday. Just I did it. I sat there and I looked at all the different mock drafts that have been out there, and I'm assuming there were no trades because I can't predict. You cannot predict trades. You don't know who's going to do what. Oh God, a saintly switch. Yes, I've seen it with the Wayans brothers. I think that was the ball-headed one. Which one is he? He was
Damon.
also Damon. Is that Damon?
That's
Okay.
Damon.
Okay, so Damon, yes, he
And the
plays.
last Boy Scout.
Yes, and yes, I've seen a saintly switch. It was a Disney film. Oh my God, it's a bad one. I mean, they didn't even try. It was like you could have put at least some footage like you filmed it in the Superdome, not like you just threw AstroTurf in your studio and got some guy running around. Yeah, David Allen Greer. You're right. You're right. David Allen Greer. Well, I was close. In Living Color, David Allen Greer, the other half of the Two Snaps Up.
Mhm.
I used to watch In Living Color a lot too. That was really funny.
That
That
was a
was
brilliant show.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. It was ahead of
That,
its time.
that blew away Saturday Night
It was
Live.
ahead of its time. It was one of those shows where they broke ground, and you never saw a show like that at that time. And it was funny. It really was. I still remember Billy D. Williams advertising malt liquor on that show. Uh, but yeah, but the two guys that's probably one of the most famous routines. David Allen Greer and Damon Williams as the two gay guys talking about fashion in movies. Hated it. Okay, so we'll go to the draft now. So the draft I did it trying to take various mock drafts over CBS and NFL.com and Saints Wire and everybody who's done mock drafts. And I said, okay, assuming no drafts, let's just go ahead and start filling in guys based on needs and best player available. And that's kind of how I took it. And to me, when I did the first 10, they pretty much fell in lockstep. I gave two to the Chargers instead of the Dolphins. I had the Dolphins take Herbert. But for the most part, I kind of went straight down the line as far as needs, kind of changed some of the names around, but basically followed that. 11 I have, or 12, wherever the Jets are, I had Judy go to the 12 to the Jets. And that was the beginning of the wide receiver run. At 13, where the 49ers are now because of the trade they made with the Colts, that's where it changed for me because instead of them taking Henry Ruggs, the wide receiver, I had them taking a defensive lineman to replace DeForest Buckner, who they just shipped off. And my reasoning for that is, okay, I got to start paying. If I'm um, John Lynch, if I got to start paying some of these players that I've got, I want to start replenishing my defensive line because that's what I win with younger players who are on rookie deals. So if I take a defensive tackle in the first round, I've got a 5-year window where I can start paying some of these other guys or moving on from these other guys instead of just loading up my offense with faster wide receivers. So that's where I did that. And once that happened, it starts changing the way the other picks were starting to fall. Okay. So I think for the Saints, we have to see how this draft goes, how many trades are made, and what positions go heavy first. If you see a lot of quarterbacks coming off the board, and I had 5 of them go, if you see a lot of offensive linemen, tackles go off the board, because anybody who's got a new quarterback or one they drafted last year, like the Giants and the Cardinals, I threw an offensive tackle at him. I said, okay, you're going to protect your investment you just did. So if you do that, quarterbacks, offensive tackles start going off the board, you're going to start seeing talented wide receivers drop. And I think that, plus the fact this is a receiver heavy draft, lent itself to a guy like Ruggs sliding as far as he did. Now, I don't think he's going to honestly slide to 24, but it does present an opportunity for a team like the Saints, who I don't think is going to draft a quarterback, to go up and go get a talented wide receiver if they think they're not going to be able to get one until the third round. So that was my mindset as I did this mock. And people lost their friggin' minds because I left Patrick Queen on the board when I made the pick. So I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, that's my thoughts, kind of how the draft can unfold if we see a lot of positions that we don't really need, like offensive tackle and quarterbacks going off the board early.
Well,
How does
see,
that
I
benefit the
think you make a
Saints?
very valid point. I think that from what I'm hearing on sports talk radio as of late, that this draft is probably going to go completely off boards with trades and deals and what have you. And I've heard one opinion that some of these mock drafts that seem to be kind of in lockstep with one another, your Daniel Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks, and all. Some of these things are so far off base as to what could actually take place. Of course, that there again, that's only opinion.
Right.
Um, but you're absolutely right. When when teams really have to get the biggest bang for their buck in a first round pick, you got to protect your new quarterbacks. You've got to have somebody for your new quarterbacks to throw the ball to. Things like that. You could see a rug begin to drop down the board, and it's nothing new. It happens every year,
Mm-hmm.
but you can. There's certain tendencies that are going to happen no matter what. That's been my experience anyway. You're going to see teams that are going to reach on quarterbacks because they need one. They're going to reach and take someone that's not a first round talent, and just so that they can say that they did their due diligence on that pick. You saw that a few years back with Chicago when they took uh, drawing blank Trubisky.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
they gave up a lot to move up one slot.
yeah, and there's always going to be a team that is desperate enough that they're going to reach on a quarterback because uh, this is a quarterback-driven league, and you're not going to win at this level without a solid franchise quarterback. You're just not going to do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree with all that. To me, and this is what we were talking about off the air. This is a receiver heavy draft. So that's why I would be surprised to see a lot of receivers go off the board early in the first round or in the first round at all. Only because a team can sit there and look at the board and say, you know what? I'm picking again at pick, say, 40 or 45. All right. If I don't take now, I'm excluding the top three receivers, and I'll even throw Jefferson in there, but I'm excluding the top three: Lamb, Judy, and Ruggs. Okay, and we can throw Jefferson in there. But if I'm debating whether I should take T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk, um, Chenault, who I think is now kind of slid all the way into the second round, but Mims, one of those guys, I can sit there and say, you know what, I can wait and take him in the second or possibly even the third round. But that tackle I want, that linebacker I want, that corner I want, the quality is not going to be there in the second round. So I better take this guy now. So that's another reason why I had someone like Ruggs sliding as far as I did, because I had Murray going to the Broncos, for example. I had a couple corners go early. C.J. Henderson and uh, who's the other one I had going off early? Not the LSU corner. A.J. Terrell. I had A.J. Terrell going to the Raiders because they've already selected one Clemson cornerback. Go ahead and get the other one. Have a match set.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the kind of stuff. So if I'm the Saints at 24, am I really desperate to go up there and go get a guy, or like Calvin wants to do, trade back in the first round, maybe pick up a second round pick if there's somebody who's looking at this board going, you know what, I really need to get this one guy, and I can't wait into the second round to get him, say an offensive tackle, because four of them have gone off the board already. If I wait to get tackle number 6 or 7, those guys aren't rated second round picks. So I need to go up there and get that guy early. So I mean that plays into it. I don't know if the Saints have it in them though to trade back. Now, one of the rumors I keep hearing over and over and over again, and I don't know how true this is the Saints are working on a trade deal with Cleveland. I don't know what they want to trade. I don't know what they're going to trade. I know future assets burn a hole in Sean Payton's pocket. Um, he's more than willing to part with first and second round picks from the next year's draft to go get the guy he wants now. That's why we don't have a second round pick this year, is because we burned it to go get McCoy last year. Um, but that's the rumor I hear. the Browns, I think, are picking at 10. And so in the second round, they're picking, I guess, 42. I guess that's the number. I might be off, might be 40. I have to go back and look. But anyway, that's the rumor that they're going to trade for either move up to the Browns at 10 or trade maybe a future pick, a first rounder or a second rounder next year to go get the Browns' second round pick this year. So that's the rumor I keep hearing. I don't know
Well,
how
I
true that
mean,
is.
you're talking about something that's got to, as we discussed earlier, it's something that has to weigh in on the decision making process, and that's the fact that you have pick number 24 in the first round, but then
Mm-hmm.
you don't pick again until the third round.
Exactly.
So,
End of the third
so
round.
you're going to have a big impact from that, barring any unforeseen trades or what have you. You're going to have to get an impact out of that
Yeah.
24
So
pick.
now that's why they're going to want to get a second round pick because the top three needs I think for the Saints are linebacker, cornerback, and receiver. Not necessarily in that order, but those are your three needs. You need youth at your receiver position, especially the speed receiver. You need a linebacker, especially a middle linebacker, because you're outside of Demario Davis. You don't have a linebacker that's coming off. It's going to be healthy or maybe last the whole season because Anzalone and Kiko Alonso both have been injured. So you really behind them is Craig Robertson and Caden Ellis, who also was hurt. You need to have an impact player, especially at middle linebacker. Um, so that's what, at least for me, I think that's where they're looking first in the first round is linebacker. But the problem you have at linebacker, you only really have two choices in that first round, and both of them have question marks behind them. With Murray and with um, Patrick Queen.
Well, Sean Payton does not draft LSU players. What is it? What is it like? 1 in 12 years?
He's drafted one. Yeah, that
Wide
was
receiver.
no, not wide receiver. Will Greer, Will Greer, Will Clapp from in the seventh round. What was it?
No,
3 years
he
ago?
drafted a wide receiver a couple of years ago.
Nope, no, he hadn't. He hasn't drafted a wide receiver from LSU because Devery Henderson came from Jim Haslett. Jim Haslett drafted one in the second round. And in the 53-year history of the Saints, they've never drafted an LSU player in the first round. That's the other big news that came out today. Coach Ogeron is out there talking about go Tigers. That's about all. Yeah, that's probably the best part about it. That's one of my favorite memes. I don't know where the biggest challenge is, but it's got to be Ogeron versus the closed captioning guy.
Yeah,
Just understanding what the man says. But
but I'll tell you one thing: he don't talk real well,
no, he doesn't. But he can coach.
but in the last 12 months, he's become one of the most beloved
Oh yeah,
sports figures in the state of Louisiana.
but that's that's the big thing. He thinks that the Saints are going to draft an LSU player this year in the first round, or at least we'll draft one in the first 2 days. And that opens up the thing to players like Jefferson, Murray, the little running back. Obviously not Joe Burrow, but maybe even the defensive end. All those players that kind of opens up all kinds of things. Now I'm not going to throw the tight end because despite his pedigree, I don't think Thaddeus Moss is a. I think he's a day three pick. I don't
Yeah,
think he's a day one or certainly not day one, but I don't think he's a day two pick. But
he'll get a lot of mileage out of his last name.
well, he's not tall enough to be a tight end for me. I think he's 6'3", and a tight end really should be 6'5" or taller. And I think he needs some work. He's a little lanky, but that's that. I'm not bashing the kid. I'm just saying that's what keeps him from
If
being.
I'm a GM and you have a second generation player,
Mhm.
that earns high marks from me because this
Well,
player is going to come into your organization and he's going to know what
mhm.
is expected of him from day one. He's going to
Yeah,
know the way that business needs to be
and
done, and
The
he's
Saints
going
have
to know
shown
how he's going to have to approach his job and how hard he's going to have to work.
the Saints have shown an interest in players who can pick up second generation players. Obviously Cam Jordan is the best example of that.
Yeah,
Nick Toon, of course, being the opposite end of it. But
yeah,
Al Toon was a fantastic receiver. It's just amazing Nick Toon wasn't as good. Um, but Cam Jordan obviously is a clear example of somebody who you go to. He knows what it takes to be a pro.
yeah.
Um,
And
but
his dad was
oh,
simply amazing.
Steve Jordan was a pros pro. Um, he was the last connection I think on that Vikings team to the old '70s era's teams of Bud Grant. Um, yeah, if you ever dig up, they have it on YouTube. If you ever watch the '87 playoff game, I don't recommend it because it's very frustrating and boring. But the '87 playoff game between the Saints and the Vikings, Steve Jordan's in that game. Um,
Yeah,
um, but anyway, so. Oh, and of course, Mark Ingram. How can you forget about Mark Ingram? Mark Ingram's dad, of course, was a receiver with the Giants.
yeah.
So
He played in the Super Bowl against these Buffalo,
no, he played
the
in the Super. He played.
wide right.
Oh yeah, he sure did. I was thinking he played in '86 Super Bowl, but you're right. That's McConkey, Steve McConkey.
McConkey.
Yeah, McConkey that plays in this.
McConkey.
That's it.
Phil
That's it.
McConkey.
Yes. Um,
U.S. Navy.
yeah, he's in '86. Well, Tony Galbraith's in that game too. That was the end of Tony Galbraith's career. Mr. Thunder from Thunder and Lightning.
Yeah.
Finished his career with the New York Giants, and he played in that Super Bowl. He got a ring. Um, but
That's the narrative from all those Saints teams back then. You come to the Saints and you leave your heart and soul on the Superdome floor, and then you go somewhere else and win a Super Bowl ring. Thank
well,
you, Ricky Jackson.
George Rogers did it.
Yeah,
That was Von Phillips. But George Rogers, that was a funny one because George Rogers got injured, but he won the NFC Championship game for the Vikings. So Super Bowl week, they hemmed and hawed, and basically Joe Gibbs said, "Okay, George, you're going to sit for this game. We're going to play your backup." And your backup was Timmy Smith, and Timmy Smith, of course, became a legend on Super Bowl Sunday.
Super
So,
Bowl record progression.
yep, absolutely. So, anyway,
Wally pipped him.
yes, yes, just couldn't stay out of the cocaine, you know.
Well, there is that.
But okay, so if the Saints don't take a linebacker in the first round, they go receiver or cornerback. What receiver would you like to see the Saints take?
There's two that I've done a little looking at that I
Okay.
really have liked what I saw. Ruggs would be one,
Hmm.
and the other is the kid from Baylor.
Oh, Mims.
Mims reminds me so much of Colson.
You know, and that's funny that you mentioned Colston because one of the guys I like reminds me a lot of Colston, and that's T. Higgins. I His build and his height and his catch radius reminds me so much of Colston. Now he doesn't offer you the speed, and that's the trick with him because he basically played the X just like Michael Thomas does. So what do you if you were to draft Higgins? How do you use him? I think it would be an interesting dynamic to have him and Thomas on the field at the same time because I'm just going to play with the arm truthers for a while. And let's just say Drew Brees has seen a decline in his arm strength. but he's still incredibly accurate. One of Higgins' strengths is the back shoulder throw. So if you've got a big bodied receiver who can post up on defensive backs, Higgins offers you a tremendous opportunity to just move the chains with the passing game, okay, and is physical with defensive backs. So I like Higgins for that reason. I don't know if that's the guy I would want to take in the first round, but if he fell to me, I wouldn't disagree with taking him. I really want a speed guy, and that's where a guy like Riggs or Ruggs. I'm sorry, not Riggs. Riggs is that's Riggs and Murtaugh. That's Lethal Weapon. But no,
Oh, that was also Atlanta Falcons 1970s.
we don't talk about him.
Gerald.
We don't talk about Gerald Riggs or William Andrews around here. We do not talk about those people. Or Alfred Jenkins or Steve Brokowski or any of those little bastards out there. I like Billy White Shoes Johnson. I will give you that one. I do like him. But the rest of them can all burn in hell. We don't talk about those people. God, I hated those two. William Andrews finished his career also with the with the Redskins. But I hated seeing those two guys because they were big physical backs, beat the crap out of our poor defense. Oh, God. Just
Well,
thinking
we
about
didn't
those
have
guys.
much of a defense at that point.
Well, you were getting there with when Andrews and Riggs were there. That was also beginning of Bum Phillips's years, but fortunately, Barkowski starts to retire, and those guys get beat up after a while. So then we start kicking their ass because they get like they got Archer as their quarterback, and you start getting crap running backs. Um, they stink for a while. They bring back Marion Campbell from the '70s to go coach the team, and Marion Campbell stunk in the '70s, and they bring him back anyway. So that's good. I could talk about those clowns, but not in the late '70s, early '80s. No, we don't talk about those players. Um, but anyway, I hate the Falcons. I really. Um, but Ruggs and Mims. Justin Rager is a name that's being thrown out. The TCU receiver. I'm seeing his name get mentioned now, associated with the Saints. He's got some speed to him, but he's also physical. And I think that's what the Saints are looking for. Looking for big-bodied receivers, um, because you want a guy that can fight for those first down markers.
I think that's the holdup on the kid from Baylor for
Mhm.
me. To me, one of the essential elements that you have to consider in analyzing a potential draft pick, you've got to look at the caliber of competition that they played. And,
Yeah, of course.
Baylor just didn't play anybody.
They never do. It's just the nature of the beast. Um, But if we don't take a receiver, if we do corner and we wait till later, the receivers, I've thrown these names out before: Van Johnson out of Florida and KJ Hill out of Ohio State. Those are two receivers I like later on in the draft. Both of them are possession kind of receivers. Um, Van Johnson is almost like a better version of Lance Moore at Lance Moore's peak, if that makes sense. Um, those are, I like him a lot because again, talking about pedigree and talking about name. Van Johnson's the son of, I think his name was Sean Jeff. I'm sorry, Van Johnson. Van Jefferson. Van Johnson was an actor way back in the '60s. He was also in the Caine Mutiny, but that's another story entirely. Van Jefferson. Sorry, Van Jefferson. Jefferson is the son of Sean Jefferson, who was a receiver with the Chargers. That's the one I remember him with the most because there's just something natural about seeing a receiver named Jefferson with the Chargers. But that's me going to Air Coryell days. But
He played for the Broncos as well.
yes, he did. He played for the Broncos, and I think he played for the Dolphins too. And I think that's where he's a position coach now. But Van Jefferson is a guy I really, really like later in the draft. possibly the third. I don't think he'll make it to the fourth, but if he does, jump on him right away because he is an incredible route runner. He's not a speedster, but he's the kind of guy who can break your ankles making a move and get separation to move the chains. And that's what you really want in this offense. It's not so much a vertical attack as it is a traditional West Coast almost offense, where it's just about moving the chains, using the short pass in substitute of a running game. And I really like him a lot. So if that's the case, if we wait till the third or fourth round to take a receiver, what cornerbacks do you like?
Uh, there's one from Ohio State. Again, the name escapes me.
Mm, that's top five pick though.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Yeah, that's not. You're looking at to me. You're looking at four cornerbacks possibly in or around 24. The LSU kid, Rager. No, not Rager. Damn it, I had it a second ago. Let me close my book. I shouldn't do that. The guys we've been talking about, AJ Terrell from Clemson, uh, Diggs, the brother of Stephon Diggs from Alabama. I can get to it. Um, yeah, Fulton, Christian Fulton from LSU, and CJ Henderson. Those are really your top four. Um,
I refuse to draft anybody to this organization that is initials are CJ. That just brings back a really bad memory. Do you realize we paid him for his career in New Orleans? We paid him over $10,000 per play.
yeah, yeah. Um, Yeah, the kid from South Carolina, you're right. The receiver from South Carolina, he could possibly be there. Edwards could possibly be there as well. I think there's going to be a lot of talent in the third round. That's why I don't think, again, you might see receivers drop just because there's so much. Once you get past the top three, even throwing Jefferson, making it four, it's really the rest of them all kind of blend together. You're not getting a big drop off from one to the other. Um, So yeah, those are the four top corners, and of course, there's your boy from Louisiana Tech, um, who is in there. I like him, but his height scares the hell out of me.
I'm telling you, he plays above that.
I know, I know.
Play for play. Uh, I heard someone on one of our local stations here the other day talking about him. And I haven't been able to follow Louisiana Tech as closely as I once did, but they said that this kid play for play, and you got to take into consideration now when you're the number one shutdown on the team, chances are your opportunities to make a play on the ball are going to decrease because they're going to play away from you, obviously. Um, but he rated out as the top corner in the country.
Well, yeah, he's 5'8", Calvin. You're right. He's 5'8", and that's why it scares the hell out of me because once you get below 5'11" as a corner, I get really, really nervous because you have to have outstanding. It doesn't mean you can't play because clearly Brent Grimes made a living playing a corner and he was short. But uh, receivers are so big now, especially in this division with Mike Evans and Julio Jones. It's hard to match up with those guys. And I'm worried that if you take Robertson, um, let's just say you take him in the third, he's only going to be a nickelback. He can never be your starting outside corner. So, I mean, is that where you take a guy like him? Or is he more day three? Um, I don't know. I don't know. But he's a gamer, and God, he has speed, and he's aggressive, and he can jump through the roof of a gym. But man, that's just so tough to get over. My local kids, I'm following Their offensive lineman from UL. Um, you've got Kevin Dotson. He's a guard, and the other one, he was a tackle at UL, but he played everything but center. My daughter was athletic trainer, and she got to know both players. But let me grab his name because I don't want to. I know it's Hunt is his last name. I don't want to butcher it. God, I've talked to some of these football players too. Um, Robert Hunt, thank you, Robert Hunt. He played tackle for UL, but he's probably going to be a guy that's going to be pushed to the inside just because he really doesn't have the feet of an offensive tackle. He's not. He works better in a tight, closed like a phone booth. Basically, is what they call players who do that. But he's 6'5", 323. He's incredibly powerful, incredibly strong. And with Larry Warford entering the last year of his deal, I think the Saints are in the market for a guard, a young, cheap guard, not a free agent guard or an undrafted free agent kind of guard. I think they're in the market for a draft pick. So those are two guys I would want to watch and see where they end up. Robert Hunt from UL and Kevin Dotson, who's a pure guard, great player, great kid. Um, Kevin is rated as I'm looking at Mike Detilier's book as we talk here. Kevin's rated as the sixth best guard. Now he's a little bit shorter. He's 6'3", 315, but he's a big mammoth guard that's incredible in pass protection. So, which is of course what the Saints like to do. So it's two guys to watch for from UL. We all know about the LSU players, but I thought we'd talk a little bit about some of the other kids from the other schools. Is there any other kid that you really like in the draft that maybe you think the Saints should look at?
Not really. I just think that you're just going to have to play it as it comes to. And like I say, what scares me about this draft is that it's going to be so very much different than anything that
Mm-hmm.
we've ever seen before. And I really and truly, based on what I've heard on Sports Talk, I really feel like this is going to be not only from the perspective of everybody can't be together in one place, but I think it's going to be different than anything that we've ever seen.
That's why I think there'll be some trades because I think a lot of guys are going to be on the phone the whole time because they're not in a room, and they'll be calling to make moves or just throwing things out there. And I think you're going to see a lot of people trying to unload veteran players. We talked a little bit about tight ends, and I want to get OJ Howard away from the Bucks now that they got Gronkowski. Um, oh man, Calvin, that's my boy. Calvin just put down the running back from Florida, Lamichael Perrine. Thank you. I can't say his name. I got his first name right though. That I look at him as a poor man's Mark Ingram. I know Calvin, you're not a big Ingram fan, but man, I love that kid. I really do. He runs with a chip on his shoulder. I'd love to get that kid.
The younger brother of Samaji, isn't
Yep.
he?
And
Yeah.
his whole life he was told you can't do this, you can't do it, you can't do it. And he went out there and by damn he proved he could. Um, so I really like him. He runs angry. He runs with a chip on his shoulder. He hits people. Um, I would love to get a hold of that kid because I think he would be an upgrade from Murray. I really do. Um, we talked last week about Alvin Kamara possibly being traded. I really don't think that's going to happen. But if it does, J.K. Dobbins, sorry, that's the guy you'd have to probably get to replace him. And I'd rather not do that. I'd rather just pay Kamara and get a power back to team up with him so he can reduce his wear and tear. Especially if you're trying to play for a Super Bowl this year. You just don't make that move.
Yeah.
Um, the only other position that I think we could look at and we touched on it, and I started to mention before I saw Calvin's comment. And Avery, I agree with you. Hunt is a top-rated offensive lineman because he's going to be a guard. That's why I think he's a day 3 pick. But I'd love to get him in the 5th. I really would. That would be incredible to get him. I don't know if he's going to go that low, but I would love to get him. But tight end, OJ Howard, of course, is my dream. I don't think that the Bucks will trade within the division, but the kid to watch for me is not an LSU tight end, but the opposite. Stanford, Colby Parkinson. He's 6'7", 250. He's a little clumsy. I mean, he stumbles, runs, but if they can work on that, he really offers you a big target. Obviously, at 6'7". That's a kid I think we should watch for to see what happens with him because
This isn't Colby Fleener Part 2.
no. This is more like let me go back in time. What was his name? God, it was a tight end in the mid '90s. The Saints had um, Farquhar, John Farquhar. I knew if I thought about it long enough. Um, do you remember him?
I do.
I don't think Parkinson is John Farquhar Part 2, but he reminds me of that from that standpoint because Farquhar, when he used to catch the ball, he was always falling, like like he caught the ball and misstepped, or somebody pushed him just as he caught the ball, and he's got to stumble to get it to keep going forward. I don't want to make Parkinson sound like he's that bad, but he's a kid that needs to grow a little more, develop more as a player. But he's a guy that you can't coach height, you can't coach speed, but he's a guy that you could probably use as your third tight end, work with him, and see what you can get out of him next year. You probably can get some height, some strength out of a guy like him. I don't think
Well, I
he's.
mean that's the exact template that they followed in Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, I mean Jimmy Graham didn't play at all his first year, really. I think he played a little bit in 2010 against the Ravens, but his 2011 was his breakout year. So that's a guy I would watch for. Of course, you got the LSU tight ends. Jacob Breeland's the only other one that even caught my eye as far as tight ends. Um, but once again, that's a guy that you probably got to stash in the practice squad for a year and get him in a weight room and work with him on his route running and stuff. I mean, he can run, he can catch, but he would need some stuff. But EJ's in the house. Good deal. Good deal. But those are my guys. Those are the guys I'm watching for. Um, I Van Jefferson and Lamichael Perine, my two favorite players. Hunt from UL. I like the cornerback from Louisiana Tech, but we're all talking about players that are going to get drafted end of round 3 and round 4. So it'll be interesting. Chase Claypool um, he's listed as a receiver. It's like Marcus Colston. If you go back and look, why is he listed as a receiver and not a tight end? Marcus Colston. Oh, Avery causing trouble. Marcus Colston was listed as a tight end when he came into the league, and he was a receiver. And a lot of people, when they re-showed the rebirth game, a lot of people were joking about, thank you NFL for listing Marcus Colston as a tight end. I got a lot of bonus points in my fantasy leagues playing Colston as a tight end. Yeah, that I don't know why Chase Claypool is listed as a receiver, not a tight end. I really don't know, but it I think he
I
could be an
mean,
interesting.
the only Claypool I know is
Wait, who's that?
Les Claypool,
Oh,
the
yeah.
bass player for Primus.
There you go. There you go.
Google him. You
Going
will
back,
be
going back
you.
to, going back to. Is he like Flea? Is he a slap bassist or is he a?
You just had look him up on YouTube and watch it.
I
I don't. I'm a bass player and I don't have the words.
you know, and here we go off the music again. I saw Primus. It had to have been 91, 92. Whenever Rush did the Roll of Bones tour, they were the opening act for Rush. And that was an unusual pairing because Rush fans aren't really Primus fans. So it
Well,
was
the lead singer and bass player, that's Les Claypool.
okay. All right. I think I know who this is because I was at that concert. Um, Man, but I was bullshitting the whole time Primus was playing. I really wasn't paying attention to them. I was waiting for Rush. So that's what happens.
No,
You know, opening act for a band, especially a popular band, no one pays attention to you. Like, get off the stage, bring on the band. Yeah, that's what it's like the whole time for those poor bastards.
the first time I got to see 38 Special in concert, their opening band was Jason and the Scorchers. Every bathroom in the NLU basketball stadium, every bathroom's toilet paper was emptied and thrown onto the stage.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's not a good thing. I saw a concert. I don't remember who it was. They had a stand-up comedian before the show, and I'm like, really? A stand-up comedian before a rock concert? Different crowd, but the guy was actually pretty funny. Um, in fact, I ended up quoting him a lot, so it had been a pretty good concert we went to because he was a fat guy and he was talking about getting thrown out of a Chinese buffet, and he would go, "Hey, you big boy, you here for an hour? You go home now." That was his big thing. So, oh, that's a rarity. Avery says he's a Neil Peart drumstick from Houston, 2007. Um, I saw Rush 3 times, and each time was fantastic. It really was. Um, in fact, I was playing Rush right before we got on the air. I was listening to Subdivisions, which everyone's heard 1,000 times. I just love it. Um, but it's they were a good band. Towards the end, I saw the Time Machine tour off of YouTube, and I saw some of the other ones. And poor Geddy Lee's voice was shot; it just wasn't the same. But they were the
The
music was
last
still
time
great.
that I saw Geddy Lee was at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction for Yes, and he sat in for Chris Squire, who had passed away from cancer.
Yeah, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Don't get me started. Don't get me started.
Yeah, Judas Priest belongs there. Just
Well,
saying.
you know, their politics just don't get me started. I just it took forever to recognize some bands, and they still won't recognize other ones. Meanwhile, bullshit one hit wonders get in there. So, like I said,
And
don't get me.
rap.
Well, and yeah, I mean, not knocking rap, but that's not
It's not
that
rock and roll.
that's yeah, that's not
It's all.
you got John Bonham's drumstick. Wow, that's nice. Yeah, it's its own separate category. It's like I love R&B, but I don't. Smokey Robinson and the Miracles is not rock and roll. That's R&B. You
Yeah.
know, Temptations, Four Tops, Aretha Franklin. Either just call it the Pop Music Hall of Fame or something if you're going to include everybody, or it's got to be rock and roll, one or the other. But
Oh,
that's just me.
along these lines, a movie that I highly, highly, highly recommend
Hmm.
about music, Rockstar.
Rock star. Okay. I,
Mark Wahlberg.
you know what movie I really recommend for rock and roll? This is Spinal Tap.
Oh, that's cheesy, but
It's hilarious.
well, it is, yeah, and it's a lot closer than a lot of people realize. Having lived on that side of the border
Yeah.
for so many years, but Rockstar is loosely based on Judas Priest, and
Okay.
Mark Wahlberg plays that role so well. Of course, it's not him singing, but the singing is done by Mike Matijevic from Steelheart.
Okay.
but the band that he plays in is named Steel Dragon, and the drummer is John Bonham's son, Jason. The bass player is Jeff Pilson from Dokken. One of the guitar players is an actor. The other guitar player is Zach Wilde from Ozzy Osbourne's band and Black Label Society.
You know, and it's funny because speaking of John Bonham and stuff, I watched the Kennedy Center Honors where they Hart goes and does Stairway to Heaven, and Jason, of course, on the drums, and of course, the three remaining members of Led Zeppelin are up in the booth being honored up in the balcony.
Yeah,
and of course they all salute Jason, and Jason salutes them. I remember Live Aid, that was the huge deal, was the Led Zeppelin reunion. There was a Led Zeppelin reunion. And that was the primary reason I was sitting there watching that whole damn thing was I wanted to see Led Zeppelin's reunion. I'm like, even if Jason, they're not going to have Jason there, you got Phil Collins there. Hell, you got the drummer Tony Thompson from Chic. Let him play the drums. He beat the hell out of them things, you know.
Yeah.
Tony Thompson, by the way, that was a drummer in Power Station. Which that's one of the reasons why I like Power Station. I love Power Station for Robert Palmer and Tony Thompson.
Robert Palmer.
I saw him in concert. That was a good show. You would think that would not be.
Singer.
You would think that is not. That's going to be a boring show. No, that was a good show. But I could talk about music all night.
The Firm.
Yep, Radioactive, The Firm.
Yeah, that's Jimmy Page and Tony Franklin on bass.
Yep. It's funny. You start getting.
And to bring this conversation kind of full circle, Paul Rogers on vocals.
Yep. That's when I was in my bad company phase. That's where I learned about The Firm, and I was listening to The Firm too. That's why I know the song Radioactive. Yeah. It's fun.
We're like Renaissance dudes.
Well, you know what happens, and this is true when it comes to, we're talking about football, and when it comes to music or anything I get interested in, movies, anything I get interested in. Okay, I look at something like I used to read the liner notes for music all the time, just like I read football stat books and things like that, and I'd see certain musicians' names, and studio musicians were the first ones that caught my attention. I start seeing these guys. I'm like, okay, this guy's worked on this album, this album, this album. I'm gonna start following him and see what else he does. And I'd start jumping over in that.
The extras, the special features.
Yep.
And I love seeing like the making of documentaries that they have on there.
Right. So as you start learning about these things, you're like, okay, that exposes you to different kinds of music and stuff. Yeah, Anna, we could have a whole show on music. I really could. I could do a whole show just on music. Just the useless trivia I've got stored in my head because I'm reading liner notes and following studio musicians. Toto was a band made up of studio musicians, really. And there's certain studio musicians, man, they come in there and, they're like, okay, I need to have this in so many takes. And Michael Landau was a classic one. You need it? You need this riff? Okay, here we go. Okay, give me $30. I'm out. And he's done. And one take, boom, he's done. The album, they got the track they want. He's good. And Michael Landau is one of my favorite studio musicians. Well, I learned about a guy named Tim Feehan from him. He's a Canadian musician. I learned about different people by following Michael Landau around. So it's fun. It really is. And I miss that.
Mr. was kind of the same deal.
Mr. Yeah, that guy.
The guitar player, Jesus, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he had auditioned for the band Kiss.
Yep.
When Vinnie Vincent left or was fired or
he was asked to leave. He was asked to leave, just like Ace Frehley was asked to leave.
No, Ace Frehley was told to leave.
Yeah. Well, I didn't say politely, but he was asked to leave. Well, you mentioned Mr. Mister, the lead singer, Richard Page, was one of the guys that they wanted to bring in to replace Peter Cetera when he left Chicago because
Yeah.
Richard Page played bass, he sang. They're like perfect match. And Richard Page says, "I do not want to sing only the beginning for the rest of my life. No,
Yeah.
thank you. I'm gonna do my own stuff for my own band." So that was that's it's funny to see how all these people get connected and stuff. So, and when they make these super groups like Bad English and that kind of stuff, Damn Yankees, where these guys came
Oh
from.
man, that's the one right there.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, you got
You take
Blades.
Kid Nugent, a Night Ranger, and
Blades
Sticks and put them together,
and Tommy
you can't
Shaw.
go wrong
Yeah,
with that.
yeah. You know. Oh yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
One other thing that I loved about that movie Invincible was the music, and in the final game where Papali makes the play that wins the game, it, the the musical overdub to it was Stranglehold by Ted Nugent.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I
And
remember that. Well, it's the same thing with Guardians of the Galaxy. It's the main reason why I love. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy were good movies, but I love going to see it in the theater because I love hearing those old '70s songs, even the ones that are not as well known, like Silver. They were one hit wonder band. Those kind of guys. Hearing that music in Dolby Sound in a movie theater, cranked up. I
yeah,
just loved it. Rubber Band Man comes booming through during Avengers Infinity War. I'm just like, oh yeah, just keep playing the music. I get into this. I like this. You just keep turning it up. So, that again, that's all part of the fun. Thank you guys for sticking with us for all this talk. We're already an hour and 15 minutes in, and we're just talking about music for the past 15 minutes.
okay. One time, especially if this
If football gets
if
delayed,
this quarantine goes on,
yeah,
we're going to do a show where we will say New Orleans Saints when we begin, and then we'll talk about music. And if it continues to last, we'll do the same thing on movies, sports movies, just whatever. That's up to you guys. Let us know what you think
sweet.
about that idea.
And I just mentioned Ballroom Blitz by Sweet.
Or or by Tia Carrere if you watch Wayne's
That is true. That is true. That is,
World.
it's funny, how movies, like I shared on my Facebook page, I shared a Russian, there's a band called Rock Mob, and they had 100 and something musicians out there, and they go and the big one everyone's seen is Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi, which is fun hearing 100 people performing Living on a Prayer. Well, they did, speaking of Wayne's World, they did Bohemian Rhapsody. And of course, that song came back because of Wayne's World and things like that. Um,
Yeah,
so, what's fun is hearing 150 people and it's musicians. I mean, it's not just singers, it's people on guitar, drums, and you've got like 50 guitarists, 25 keyboardists, 50 drummers, and they're all in time and in perfect sync playing the song. So it's this crowd singing Bohemian Rhapsody. So it's really fun to watch. And of course, you can't listen to Bohemian Rhapsody without thinking about Wayne's World when it gets to the guitar part when they all start slamming their head like
yeah,
headbangers. My daughter does that. My youngest one does it all the time. She gets ready, she takes the glasses off. I'm like, oh, here it comes. And she starts whipping her head around doing the head banging. So she loves it. She loves Queen. Anyway, thank you guys for joining us. I do believe the Saints are trading up. I do not think they're getting Jordan Love. I don't think they're drafting a quarterback this year. I just do not have that feeling. Um, Sean, do you feel the same?
it's a hard thing to commit to. On one hand, as I've said before,
Mm-hmm.
all indications seem to point towards probably a 80 to 90% probability that this will be win, lose, or draw Drew Brees' final season.
Yeah.
And if you were going to bring in a free agent to back up Drew, I kind of would like to think that would have taken place by now. Um, it depends on what kind of deal you could possibly make, where you could move up, and who would be available at that point in time. I know that's very non-committal, but
Well, I mean, and that's just it. I don't think they have the ammo to move up into the top 10 to get a guy. So now you're looking at basically Jordan Love in the first round because he's probably the last first rounder, and then you're looking at like we were talking about last week, the Easton, the Jake Fromm, all those guys, and they're not. I don't see them as starters.
no,
So I mean, that's
with quarterbacks,
yeah,
a quarterback that you take in the second round is a project.
right.
That's
So
just my opinion, and it always has been. And in a lot of cases, there again, in my opinion, Mitch Trubisky was a project when you took him in the first
yep.
round.
Hmm.
Um, you can have a quarterback class of, say, for example, 10 guys that could be first or second round. Of those 10 guys, maybe at best, two are going to be first day starters and actually flourish in that role. It's just, it's not a position, it's too demanding a position for there to be a seamless transition.
It, you'll be five quarterbacks going in the first round, and at least two of them are going to be bust. But
Yes.
that's a law of averages. So I mean, even the class of '83 had Todd Blackledge in there. You
Yeah.
know, so
Ken O'Brien.
uh, Ken O'Brien, I give a little bit of a pass. He played with the Jets, but he actually lasted a little while. But clearly, Jim Kelly, Dan Marino, and Steve Young, and John Elway were all Hall of Fame kind of quarterbacks. Um, but that's the marquee. That's the top. The best you could possibly get was the class '83 quarterback, and you still had a bust in there with Todd
Yeah.
Blackledge. So someone is the Todd Blackledge of this draft class. Don't know who. Could be Justin Herbert. That's my gut feeling. And Jordan Love is my second choice. But you don't know. Um, Even the class of 2000 or 99, sorry, 99, with the only one you had worth a damn was McNabb, and you had all those quarterbacks drafted. And you ended up with Cade McCown, Achilles Smith, who I think got a 3 or an 8 on the Wonderlic test. I don't remember, some single digit. But I mean, you had a lot of bust in that one too. And Tim Couch, number one overall. So, it's from only from gets taken in the first round. I'm just talking about first round only, Calvin. First round only.
Hey,
One of those
we don't.
guys is going to be a huge bust, and we don't know who it is yet. So,
Yeah, I'm not sold on by any stretch of the imagination. Herbert's got a big arm. Um, I would really like to see a better body of work from him. Jordan Love, uh, all the scouts seem to think that he's a talent, but there again, I gotta I gotta take into consideration the caliber of competition that he played against. Uh, Tua, as I told you off the air, and people can crucify me on this if they want. I would not draft Tua with somebody else's draft pick in the first
that's not
round.
quite how I remember that saying, but that's all right. We won't go there.
Um, I think it, seriously, and I think that Joe Burrow is going to be an overwhelming success at the next level because of his work ethic and his talent and his ability and the season that he put together this past year. I mean, it was absolutely unprecedented. The biggest question mark for Burrow is going to be who he's paired with to prepare him for life at the next level.
Being shackled to the Bengals is kind of like being shackled to an all but to a dead weight. Um,
Well, the culture with the Bengals is changing because they've spent almost $100 million in free agency, which
well,
they never do.
yeah, it's the owner. It's the owner though. But yeah. Um, anyway, yeah, it's one of those things that I think I think he's going to be successful despite the Bengals, not because of the Bengals. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know who the bust is going to be. I'm leaning towards Justin Herbert, just because I just feel like Oregon quarterbacks, with all apologies to Dan Fouts, or Oregon quarterbacks just are not cut out for the NFL. I don't know why. It's like there's just something about them. It's almost like the issue you had with between Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf, when Ryan Leaf had the impressive resume, but didn't have it between the ears of the personality to be the hard worker. And I'm not saying Justin Herbert is not going to be a hard worker. I just feel like he's an exceptional college quarterback, not going to be an exceptional pro quarterback. And I could be dead wrong. I really
And see,
could be.
that's the thing that most people don't maintain a grasp of. There is a Grand Canyon size difference
Mhm.
between being a good college quarterback and an acceptable professional quarterback. The bar is so much higher. The game is so much faster. The
Yep.
expectation level is absolutely through the roof.
Decision making. You've got to make those decisions quickly. And if you're not a quick processor, if you're not a quick decision maker, where you make the commitment and you know what you're going to do, you know what the defense is going to expect, you make that throw. And I just think his he's slow. And I don't. I mean, I don't. I could be dead wrong, but it sure looks like it. He's waiting for the perfect throw. He's not anticipating the throw. He's waiting for that perfect throw. That's not going to happen in the NFL. The windows are too far too small. So yeah, uh, Calvin keeps calling Trubisky 2.0. We'll see. He could be. He could be. So anyway, that's just my thoughts. So I don't think they're going to take it. I think it's going to be a linebacker, cornerback at worst, but a linebacker in that first round, unless something unbelievable happens. They go get a receiver that just like Judy is right there. You're like,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's the only thing I can see them do. And I do believe they're going to get back in the second round. There's no way they're going to go between the first and the third. They're going to burn something to get back in that second, and that's going to be the player that they're going to go get. They have to have him.
Let's trade PJ Williams for the second round.
Oh, I hear you, Mike Ditka. Let's go with that. Yeah, that's not that's you find Mike Ditka in this thing, and they'll make that trade.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, once again, I bring up a new topic when I'm trying to sign off the air. Uh, but thank you guys for sticking with us. Enjoy the draft Thursday. I watched the '89 draft last night on ESPN2, and I'm not doing this to bring up a new subject, but just watch. If you guys got to watch that last night, remember how that draft looked, and then watch Thursday night's draft and see the difference 20 years have made in their draft coverage. They were critical. They were militant about the picks they made. In fact, Mel Kiper had a shit fit because the Saints picked Wayne Martin and not Bill Wilkins or some clown like that who played 4 years in the NFL. And he was bitching about how Wayne Martin's not going to be a Pro Bowl player, which is ironic because, of course, he was. Um, but they were critical, and there was no fluff pieces about the players. It was strictly all about teams and going out, and these are the needs you got to get, and promoting players. This draft is going to be filled with fluff pieces. They are not critical. Um, in fact, they're non confrontational about anything. And the crowd is totally different. because they're all color coordinated well, there's no crowd this year, but I mean, it's tame compared to you watch. They used to do a Madison Garden back then. They just had a galley. They didn't have like a whole room full of people. The Jet fans losing their mind because they picked Jeff Lageman instead of um, Lewis Oliver is the player they wanted. It's so different than it is today. So it's really fun to see the
The
old
Eagles booing because they drafted McNabb.
right. I mean, that's about as close as you get now. Before, you used to get really critical, and that's where the hell did Mel Kiper? Who the hell was Mel Kiper came from? When
Mm.
Kiper sat there and bashed the Colts for taking Trev Alberts instead of taking he's a ball-headed quarterback. He won the Super Bowl for the Ravens. Trent Dilfer. Um, Instead of taking Trent Dilfer, they took Trev Alberts. That's when Tobin, the GM for the Colts at the time, did the whole thing. Who the hell is Mel Kiper anyway? That's the part of the draft that's missing now. That used to be so much fun for me as a fan to watch because I could give a damn about these fluff pieces about this kid, and when he grew up, he had a horse named Bobby, and that. I mean, I don't give a damn about that stuff. I mean, what the? I want to know. I want to see the fans lose their shit because you picked somebody they didn't like. That's what's fun. That was what was fun about the draft. And Jet fans chanting, "We want Sap! We want Sap!" Warren Sapp was on the board, and they pick the tight end, I think, is who they picked that year. And the Jet fans, yeah, and the Giants fans making fun of him. That's what the draft should be about.
Kyle
That's
Brady.
yeah, Kyle Brady, and the Giants picked the tight end right after it. So yeah. So I have to go back and watch my old YouTube clip of Jets draft mistakes, biggest Jets draft blunders. That's always fun. It's just great because the Saints, of course, their draft history sucks. So it's great to watch somebody else live the misery. um, anyway, thank you guys once again for joining us and sticking with my rambling. My Sean and I talking about movies and music, and enjoy the draft. Like I said, do the comparison contrast between the draft today and the draft from years ago, and we'll see how the Saints do. It's so much primetime television now compared to how it used to be. But this will be a different one to watch. And I'm telling you, they're going to have Bob from IT is going to get screwed up something, and someone's not going to get the draft picks they want. And I'm just going to say, Will Chelichick will somehow get the draft picks he wants because he hacked into the Jets and the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins draft board. So he's going to steal players. Anyway, thank you. Oh, Sean, you didn't pay the bills. Pay the bills real quick, and then we'll sign off.
Thank you guys for joining us on Under the Dome tonight. We hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for sticking with us. We're just trying to entertain you guys.
Absolutely.
We're in the same boat that you guys are in. We love our Saints football. We love music. We love movies. We love all that stuff. And like I said, you guys, you want to show on sports movies, music, whatever, you let us know that. We kind of have a little bit of liberty and free time at this point. We can certainly accommodate you there. But at any rate, follow us on YouTube and on iTunes and on Facebook at Under the Dome Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter. He's at 79 Saints, and I am at Drew's Dad 3721. And with that, I send it back to you, Val.
All right. Thank you guys for sticking with us. And we will see you next week on Under the Dome. We will break down what the Saints actually did in the draft and talk about the moves they need to make to get ready for a potential season. You like that, huh, Sean? I had to throw that in there. I like tour. Sean does not. The battle begins. Anyway, thank you guys.
He'll be picked in the top 5, I guarantee you.
Oh yeah, and we're gonna see who ends up being right about it. Who's got which career?
It'll be me, but
Yeah. Um, yeah, Calvin, watch a trip and get to her. I will be ecstatic. Sean will be pissed. I will be
I will
dancing.
be despondent, suicidal.
If we get to it, I am buying an Alabama jersey, 13 jersey. I will wear this on the show. I will find an Alabama jersey and put it on if we get to it. But
If we get to it, I will buy a 13 Alabama jersey and I'll wipe my ass with it on the show.
ah, you gotta just put an Oklahoma jersey on. Tell me it's Alabama. That's what you would do. Anyway, thank you guys for sticking with us. We'll see you next time on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.